You're listening to Infinite TBR, the podcast where we try not to buy more books. I'm Smack.
And I'm Gabi. Spoiler alert! We're going to avoid major spoilers, and when we can, warn when we're going to discuss a particular book in detail so you can avoid that part of the episode. You can also check the show notes for time-stamped flags identifying potential spoilers.
Future Gabi here! As in the last episode, and probably many episodes to come, if you listen carefully, or maybe not even that carefully, you can hear Loki snoring in the background. And we simply will never have the heart to kick him out of the room, because why would we do that? We're not monsters. So keep an ear out and enjoy.
So we're back.
We're back
to talk about the books that Gabi finished on her Smack shelf and gave back to me that I now have to make room for somewhere. And they're really good books.
And then some of the things that...
recent reads,
yes,
basically.
there's a, yeah, we're gonna get into more of our recent reads.
A little more into one of the books I read when I was in Oregon.
Yeah.
I've been reading a lot. It's kind of nice.
Yay. I was on a roll for a bit, and then I got busy, but...
Life happens.
Life happened.
Well, one of the books... Oh, God. So, one of the books that I'm handing Gabi at this point is the duology by Tricia Levenseller. Oh, yeah. The first one's Master of Iron? No, that's the second one. Blade of Secrets is the first one. And it's so, like, her books are just so much fun. They're a YA duology. The main character has severe social anxiety and then has to go on an adventure and leave her, like, safe space. And it's really a trial for her. She has a lot of trouble with it. She has panic attacks. And she has this great, I mean, it's sort of codependent, but she has this great relationship with her sister who, like, helps her out. And it's a really interesting exploration of anxiety because it's a secondary world and there are no, like, meds.
Right.
Like, there's not even any, like, pot because it's a YA book.
Oh. I was like, you could have pot in a secondary
totally
fantasy.
Could, but it's a YA book.
Okay.
And so, like, she has to make do with various coping mechanisms that, like, any one of us could try to use. But, like, I just felt so bad for her. But, like, she does grow and she does get a handle. I mean, like, it doesn't go away. And that's part of the exploration of it is that, like, you meet friends and people you come to love and sometimes they expect you to, like, evolve beyond it,
right? And
you have to be like, no, this is just how it's going to be for my whole life. This is what my brain is like. It's just such a fun story and it's
refreshing.
And I really liked the main character. Her name is Ziva, I think. She's a smith and she makes magic weapons.
Yay.
And she makes specialized magic weapons for individual orders, and then this warlord comes through and, like, Ziva really likes this warlord. She's very, like, charismatic and they talk about weapons and the warlord is very low-key and she doesn't stress Ziva out. And so this woman contracts Ziva to build, she wants Ziva to push herself as far as she's ever gone to build the perfect weapon, the most artistic piece of machinery. It's not a machine. Anyway, Ziva builds a magic sword. And it turns out to be, like, too magic.
Oops.
It cuts from 100 paces, like, you swing your sword and 20 people fall down dead. And then you hear all of their secrets when they fall down dead. So if, like, you cut your hand, then your secrets get absorbed by the sword. If you cut someone else's hands, it gets absorbed by the sword and you get to, like, see the secrets.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's, like, way more than one single bloodthirsty woman should have.
Oops.
So Ziva and her sister grab the sword and go on the run. It's great. It's so good. It's so much fun. I will definitely be rereading those too. They're great.
Okay.
I love it. The Corpse Queen. That was another good one.
By
Heather Herman is another YA. I went through a string of YA reads and I haven't done that in a while and I quite enjoyed it.
I was going to say, it sounds like you picked some good ones.
I sure did.
Which can be...
It was unexpected in a couple of different ways. So the Corpse Queen follows this orphan who is released from the orphanage and sent to her quote-unquote aunt to live, and so she just assumes that the nuns, like, sold her as a maid to this woman.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns out they're actually, like, blood family.
Oh, like really her
really her long-lost aunt. But the woman has this, like, glittering, glitzy, expensive life where she has a lot of influence, and she is well educated, and she came from the same nothing background that the main character has come from.
Uh-huh.
But she has clawed her way to the social top in Philadelphia in the 18-somethings.
Oh, okay.
And it turns out she's done so by selling corpses to medical colleges for like when they cut you up.
Oh.
To study the insides.
Yeah. I mean dissection.
Dissection. Thank you very much.
I wasn't sure if there was a different word specifically for when it's in medical school and you're learning, like, how to be a mortician, basically.
They're learning how to be doctors.
Okay.
Anyway, she made her money selling corpses to medical schools.
Cool.
But she's made a lot of money recently by specializing in people with, I don't want to call them deformities, but that's what they call them in the book.
Uh-huh.
So, like, conjoined twins type thing.
Right.
People with extra fingers, people with weird organs.
Uncommon ailments.
Thank you. And she doesn't sell them to medical schools. She sells them directly to this one famous doctor who does these lectures in her, like, she has a converted church, basically.
Speaking of uncommon ailments, really quick weird tangent. You want to hear about a really weird one?
Yes.
My dad had to go, I don't remember why, but had to go get an echocardiogram done and found out that, like, your heart has a network of veins and arteries that kind of encircle it and, like, feed the heart directly.
Mm-hmm.
And he found out that all of his are wired backwards.
What?
And apparently it's, like, this freak genetic thing. And, like...
Is yours like that?
I'm sure if mine were like that, I would have heard about it by now. Because I get a bunch. But surely
you're
someone
a
would have
delicate
told
flower
me by now. But he had never gotten an echo done.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And I don't think it comes with any, like... There's no concerns or anything. It's just backwards.
That is so cool.
And so if anything weird ever happened, like, I don't know... Like he'd have to make sure they knew things are backwards. Anyway, I thought that was
that's fascinating.
He would make her so much money.
He would make her a lot of money. Yeah. But I mean, like, this guy who she's in cahoots with, he's a complete charlatan. He does shit like sewing pig heads onto corpses, like human corpses, and then he electrocutes them basically so they, like, twitch and sit up. And he's like, I've conquered death, blah, blah, blah. He is the true villain of this story. Jesus, he's nuts. Not that her aunt is, like, particularly stable anyway.
Sure.
It was just so interesting. And there's, like, this romantic subplot that it's not a happily ever after. It's, like, a sort of bittersweet thing. Like, first love.
And you put this on my pile?
Well, I mean, the rest of it is really good. It's a nice...
But I like it.
I thought the ending was fine.
Okay.
It just was unconventional.
Okay.
You know, I do think you'll like it.
Okay.
But now you've been warned. So.
Okay.
The other thing, though, is that, like, she makes the main character earn her keep. She has to, like, pick up bodies and stuff. And that is very tense. Because there's always this element of, like, if you get caught, you could be hung. Like, like, it's a big deal. And no matter who they pick the bodies up from, it seems like whoever they pick them up from has no idea what is happening. And so, like, you always have to have, like, a backstory and, like, think on your feet and make shit up on the fly.
Couldn't do it. Could not be me. I'm bad at thinking on my feet.
Like, yes, you would have trouble. Do not recommend this career path for you. I don't even think I'm better at that kind of thing, but I don't think there were some high stakes, and it was just a really good read. Very creepy, but, like, this...
So good October read.
Yeah, it was a really good October read. This undercurrent, it's not even an undercurrent, this current of female rage through all the various characters and how, like, the ways that the world has shaped them and the resentments that grow because of that. Very good. But yeah, it's a good October read.
Okay.
You can hold on to it till then.
It's not like I have anything else to read right down. What other one did you hand me today?
Oh, what was it? Cold the Night.
Oh,
Cold the Night, Fast the Wolves.
Fast the Night, Cold the Wolves?
Yeah. Cold the Night, Fast the Wolves by Meg Long.
And that was, you liked that?
I did like that. Okay. It's sci-fi, YA sci-fi on a secondary...
Oh, it's sci-fi?
It's light sci-fi. It's another world. It's a ice planet, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's this, like... What's the dog race? Iditarod?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's an ice planet version of that with, like, genetically enhanced wolves pulling sleds, and, like, the goal is to get to these mines for the specific mineral that is mostly only found on this planet that's super inhospitable and hard to mine stuff from. And the locals, the people who live there year-round, basically live in these crime boss slums, and the only money in the planet comes through this racing, and it usually comes from off-planet, from corporations or really rich people who are trying to mine this thing. Yeah. And so the main character, it's a queer normative world, which is really cool. Yay. The main character, her mothers are dead, unfortunately.
No.
But
why are you putting these on my show?
Because she makes friends with a wolf.
Okay.
And they learn to trust each other, and they save each other. And then there's this other girl who comes in from off-planet who just really likes to kick hornets' nests.
Whee.
And cause trouble.
Like, what's her face from... What's that book?
No way.
Hellcats. Galactic Hellcats.
Galactic Hellcats. Yeah, it is sort of like that.
Bye.
I don't remember.
Anyway, the main character
Marie
in that.
Vibberts.
Yes.
Yeah. I can't remember. Marie Vibberts.
Her whole character was kicking hornets.
And this troublemaker girl turns out to have this, like, great backstory as well.
Ooh.
And I don't know if there's going to be a sequel, or a book from the troublemaker's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
But there totally could be.
We were talking earlier today about how that seems to be... Was that with you? I was talking about this with someone recently.
I don't think it was me.
Maybe that was yesterday. But it came up when we were talking with Laura, number one fan Laura, where... A big thing right now seems to be...
how that's her episode.
I know.
Laura, our number one fan, Laura. It's like in Homer. He calls, like, Aphrodite, like, pale-elbowed Aphrodite or something. Pale-wristed Aphrodite. Anyway.
Our
continue.
Number one fan, Laura. Our own goddess. Goddess of ITV.
Yeah. Okay, continue.
Anyway, I don't know if it's a recent trend or if it's just like something that's come up a lot recently and our reads are on our radar or on our
radar. Radar for books.
Amazing.
Radar.
Well, now I'm gonna keep it on our
Obviously.
radar. Where authors will make that cash by writing a book or a series and then writing the exact same story from
we were
the
talking
love
about
interest
that,
point of view, which, like, I respect the hustle, but also I probably am not going to read
artistry.
Yeah.
We were talking about that, and I do, like, we were specifically talking about A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. Because A Touch of Darkness is followed by basically the exact same events, but they're from the love interest point of view. And there are several books.
Yeah.
Like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I
from
think
each of their point
her
of view.
whole plan is to release, like, one of each.
Which is, like,
So
I don't care
seven
how much
columns.
changes. That's just nuts. That's too much for me.
What could you add? And I guess, like, Jacqueline Carey is releasing Cushell's, the original Cushell's trilogy, but from
the
Jocelyn's point of view.
That's which
is love interest.
Yeah. And at least that's been, like, 20 years.
Right.
I mean, it's still...
Ooh.
I made a face, but, like, at least it's been 20 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, but with Cold the Night, Fast the Wolves, I do think because it was her debut book. It was her first book. So a lot of the time, you sell a book after it's already been written, and then your publisher won't let you sell a sequel to them until they see the numbers on your first book. So if your first book doesn't do well, then they don't want a sequel.
Right.
And I haven't heard anything, which is unfortunate.
That is unfortunate.
I don't know. I hope she writes another one. I'd read it, for sure.
It does say number 1. Oh yeah, Swift the Storm, Fierce the Flame.
Oh, there is another one. There wasn't last month when I checked online.
Surprise!
Yay!
It says it was published in January.
Well, so
there
that's
you
my
go.
recent reads, more
Oh, yeah.
or less.
Specifically the ones you've now passed on to the Gabi Smack Show.
Yo.
The ones I just gave back include, as we just mentioned, A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair, which
Neither of us were particularly
not
taken
beloved.
with. Although I will say, I was telling Gabby and our number one fan Laura about this, but like, there were some parts of the world building that I just found really tedious. It's a Greek myth retelling, right? And it takes place in this like it's not our world and it's not a mythical version of our history. It's a city where all of the Greek gods are like tycoons,
Right.
And
It's like
and
an
like they
alternate
are gods, but they're also like billionaires and shit.
Yeah, it's like an alternate history. So it's like it's modern world if the Greek gods truly existed and at one point in
Had,
history
like,
came back
taken over. Yeah.
But that's the part where like the world building is just not there. So
Yeah.
that's not explained.
That's true. Yeah.
At all.
And a lot of the world building that bothered me seemed like really shallow things to include. Like, Zeus works at a PR firm called Oak and Eagle, and the tree and the animal that is associated with Zeus is an oak and an eagle. And like, just very... It didn't impress me at all, but I have to go find my notes real quick.
Okay.
I wrote this down.
One of the biggest things that got to me was the question of their immortality, because she says several
really?
times that the gods and goddesses are immortal, but there are a couple spots in the book where she's wandering into various dangerous water basins. And
Water basins?
yeah, so first she wanders into the underworld unsupervised and comes to the river Styx.
Oh, right.
And is like, well, there's no bridge, I'll just try and swim across.
I
And
remember
is
that.
like immediately dragged down into the river by these corpses, and there seems to be a real worry that she'll drown. But
And that-
she has also said that she's immortal.
Right.
So there's this open question of how that works, like
Right.
how immortality works and what
I
are the
want to
risks
say that's canonical.
that they can drown.
that like the river Styx can take anyone.
Oh, like it's specific to Styx.
I think so.
Might be able to.
I think the rivers of the underworld, including Leith,
Right.
and which takes
So
away
then-
your memory.
That's the second water basin, because she has to like grow this garden in the underworld.
Right.
And she's like, I have no water to water my garden.
I'll just go
to this river over here. And Hecate is like, hey, don't don't do that.
Why would you
Use
do that?
this fountain.
Yeah. Why? Like, God, she's just so...
And then the antagonist sends her to Tantalus, who's hanging out in a different pond.
Oh, right.
That, like, also, like, almost drowns her or something.
Yeah, she's not good with water.
No, every time water came up, it was never good.
That's interesting. I
It
hadn't
was
noticed
very
that.
funny.
So I found my notes that I was
Yes.
writing for this podcast, and it says I got all pissy because it's all window dressing, and you know how much I hate window dressing.
Yep.
So,
I sure do.
and the example I gave is the people she meets at this like nightclub. Just off the bat, they're like all major figures in mythology.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, I ran
Like
into
Sybil.
Adonis.
Sybil,
Yeah.
Adonis,
Like,
Circes, and...
people who you would not expect to be hanging out together. People who you would... Like, wouldn't you meet normal people at this club? No, you run into, like, all 5 of the main mortals in Greek mythology. Like, that drove me nuts. That, among many things, drove me nuts. But, like, when you drill down into the book's mythology versus the actual Greek mythology, it's not all window dressing, and it actually all makes sense.
Yes. There were a couple things I really enjoyed that she pulled from the Greek myths, including the whole thing with the mint plant.
Yeah, the mint plant.
was
That was good.
amazing.
So, the flourishes tended to overwhelm, like, the actual structure of the world building. And, like, the story is a good metaphor for the goddess of spring.
Right.
Because she does start out as this maiden who's barely out from her mother's shadow, and then grows into an actual adult who tells her mother no.
Yes. And they have a very interesting and well represented toxic relationship.
Yes.
Which I thought was one of the strengths.
Yeah.
And the way she kind of avoids and deals with that.
Mm-hmm. It's not the choice I would have made, because it's just so easy to make a mother figure in a romance the bad guy.
Yes. It was interesting to make that the dynamic and also add goddess stakes to it. Like, they have this toxic relationship, and also Demeter has these power, like, and uses them.
Yeah, she's not just
when she's pissed.
Your mother.
Yeah.
She's physically more powerful.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was interesting.
Mm-hmm. And then my other thing was, like, to an extent, some of these major gods could be researched, because Persephone goes to the library and researches, like, reads up on Hades. So it's almost like the Greek gods are historically documented the way they are in our world, but there's no documentation on Persephone. Like, she really is, like, 24 somehow.
Yeah. And completely hidden from the world.
Yeah.
Which I don't think was the case in regular mythology.
Yeah,
because Zeus basically gifts her to Hades without telling Demeter.
Oh.
So Zeus knows about her. She's known to be Demeter's daughter. And so I guess the part that made sense to me was the fact that there are all these different realms. Mm-hmm. And they're sort of treated like other countries. Not somewhere like you have to find this esoteric book and then chant the specific words and have, like, you specific candles. There. Yeah, you just go there and come back. Yeah. And that's not how it works in regular Greek mythology, but, like, that was the interesting part of her world building, I thought.
Where I thought it was going was that they were going to be, like, sort of reincarnated, kind of. Like, maybe something had happened to, like, I thought it was, like, everything that happened in Greek myth happened.
Right.
And then, like, something happened specifically to Persephone. Oh. And then she was reborn. And that's why Demeter was keeping her locked up, because she knew that she was
would be
supposed
such a
to
good
be,
story.
I know. And everyone knew that she was supposed to be Hades' wife. But she was keeping her hidden away because she didn't want.
Wow,
she knew.
that would have been real.
That's where I thought it was going most of the book, and then
not
it didn't.
At all what happened. I would read that though. That sounds very
right.
Interesting.
Is that why I'm gonna write that?
It's more of that memory stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I know. I was like memory stuff.
Yes. Amnesia,
and that's for me. And that's for me.
Yeah. So I mean, it wasn't my favorite, but like,
but there were some moments at the end that were great. The end,
which was sort of frustrating because
if that had been the whole, like, last third of the book,
it would have been
much
better.
Anyway, I also read Uncommon Charm by Emily Bergslien and Kat Weaver, and we've talked about that before, and it was as charming as you indicated. I read Minor Feelings, an Asian-American Reckoning by Kathy Park Hong. That one I actually mostly ended up audiobooking, and that's one where she
read it herself.
Yeah,
that's cool. Herself. What did you think of it?
It was really interesting.
Wasn't it?
It's honestly the more interesting parts were because she's part of this art world. I'm not familiar with the realities of how the art world, physical art?
Yeah.
Is that how you say it?
Like sculptures and paintings and not performance art, right?
No, not really.
But stuff you can hold.
Right. So I don't know anything
about that.
So that was very informative. And then she's had a lot of toxic relationships in her life.
So many.
And that was one of the most interesting things about it was the way that she really holds no punches when it comes to some of the toxic things that she's done.
Yeah.
And some of the things that I'm sure that she's not proud of doing, but she doesn't sugarcoat anything. And she just talks about all these things that happened in her life and as part of these communities that I'm just not familiar with at all. So it was fascinating.
Yeah, I remember really liking it.
Yeah. And I think on this podcast you've gotten into more details about some of the essays.
It's just been a while.
Yeah. And then I read Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher.
What'd you
Which was
think?
perfect. And now I need a copy of my own. That's the one where this
Thirdborn princess
is kind of, she's the spare. They shove her off to a convent, basically as like a, like a backup.
Yeah.
In case we need you.
We know where to find you.
We know where to find you. Because her first sister was married off to resolve. They are the princesses of this tiny little harbor kingdom between two very large kingdoms on either side.
And so her mother, who is her oldest sister's stepmother, is ruthless.
Yeah.
But she does it to keep everyone in their teeny tiny little kingdom safe.
Yes. Like she's a very good queen and perhaps not a very good mother.
Yes. Yes. That is an excellent description of it. Yes. So the oldest sister goes off and marries this guy in the northern kingdom, and her body is brought back like 6 months later.
Yep.
And then another 6 months till it's appropriate, and then they send the second one off.
Yep.
And that's sort of where it starts.
Yeah. And she had a much better relationship with her eldest sister than the second eldest.
She worshipped her eldest sister. And the middle sister and the main character, the youngest, they did not have a good relationship at all. Like, pinching, hitting, hating each other's guts.
And she has this very naive sense of what's going on, but also like it's never been her job to understand what's going on, and a lot of it is suggested that she didn't want to know,
right? And because a lot of it's really dark.
Yes,
who wants to know that shit?
And then once she forces herself to look, or like is forced to look at it straight on, she's very good at being like, I can't come back from this, and I'm gonna fix it.
Yeah.
And it's about her journey,
which is just as well that she didn't have to look at it straight on.
Yes.
Before the book began, because otherwise she would have had to fix it, and she would have failed at that point.
When she was equipped to deal with it.
Yeah. Mostly, sort of.
Yes.
More or less.
When she had an accurate assessment of her own abilities.
Yeah. So I read that one twice. I would totally read it again.
So
I'm absolutely going to read that one again.
And then we come to the powerhouses. The Novel was great. It's just small and perfect, and there's not much else to say about it.
Because we've talked about it
already. And we talked about it already. Blackwater Sister by Zen Cho was
magnificent.
Incredible. This is about a Malaysian-American woman whose parents came to America when she was really young.
Yeah.
So after she was born, so she grew up in America, and then after she's a young adult,
she finishes college.
She finishes college and then can't get a job. She's really living the millennial experience, and it is painful to watch because we all know what it's like. Yep. And so she's having a really hard time getting a job and achieving this American dream that her parents envisioned, and then health things happen.
Middle class life that she and her parents have always assumed she would end up with. Yeah.
And that the whole they gave up everything to make this happen.
Yeah.
So there's that dynamic.
And she's queer and she can't come out.
Yes. So they go back to Malaysia thinking, I think the idea is, first of all, her father goes through this health scares and he's in remission, but they think they need some family support, and they think they might have better luck. All of them, someone in their family offers the dad a job, and just for job reasons and for family support reasons, they decide to go back to Malaysia. They move in with the brother and sister-in-law, I think the father's brother and sister-in-law. So it's this very interesting, large family full of uncles and aunties, coming and going. It's very
and the culture clash too, because they expect her to to know things that she doesn't.
And she, she doesn't. She's not fluent in the language, and I guess and
is trying to hide her girlfriend with this time difference. Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh. And then all this is happening, and then the ghost of her grandmother shows up
and possesses her.
And she doesn't know. This is her mom's mom.
Yeah.
And her mom has been very careful to not say anything about how they
her
are very
mother
estranged.
Has completely cut off her side of the family. It's only ever been the main character's dad's side of the family.
Yes.
Until her grandmother possesses her.
Yeah.
And all sorts of weird shit happens.
Oh, it was written so, and it's like, it's one of those ones where you think you know what's going on.
And you don't!
And you don't! And she doesn't. And it's great because she makes very smart conclusions based on the information
she has. They just happen to be wrong.
Yeah. And then it's this insane thing of, like, everyone expects her to catch on to this information that no one's telling her.
Right. Like, they just expect her to know these things.
Yes.
Both, like, in the practical, physical world, and with these freaking ghosts and demons and stuff.
And then there are these gods that are part of this whole thing, and that's another, like, unspoken thing. Like, they don't talk about the gods because you don't want to draw their attention.
But if you don't tell her anything, like, she doesn't know anything,
then she makes certain decisions.
That, like, maybe it would have been better to just start off.
Oh, but so good.
Fate. Yeah, it was really
I don't
good.
think I can recommend that one enough.
That was so good.
So
I'm
good.
very pleased to have that one back. I will be rereading it.
Yeah, that one I think I need a copy of my own.
I almost didn't pick that one up. That was like my last purchase at our last Sirens.
So funny because Zencho has been on my TBR for a really long time, and I have The Sorcerer and the Crown sitting on my freaking bookshelf, and that seems right up my alley.
It really does, right?
And then Blackwater Sister, and I've read The Order of the Pure Moon, Reflected in Water, which is a novella that was very good, and it was also very Gabi thing.
Yeah.
But Blackwater Sister, I always was just like, wow, it doesn't seem like a whole lot of things that are up my alley.
It was so
they're not Gabi boxes, but it was so good.
It was
so now I really just need to go read everything she's written.
The other
powerhouse was The Space Between Worlds by Micah, you said?
I said Micah?
Micaiah?
Micaiah
Johnson.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure I got that part right.
I think it's Micah. Anyway. The book is called The Space Between Worlds.
And it is some of the most incredible world building
I've
ever read.
Oh my god, this book.
It's a multiverse setup where they invent technology to travel between worlds. It's like a tech billionaire.
Yeah.
Invents a way or figures out the way
to travel between parallel worlds.
But you can only travel to worlds, first of all, that are mostly similar to your own. So you eventually get to a point where worlds have diverged so much that you can't travel to them. Like, that you can't get the worlds
to resonate.
And they number them very, like, corporatized. Like, World 1 is as close as to their world as you could possibly get. And it goes up to, like...
370.
370.
There used to be 372.
And then they lost.
And they go dark.
Yeah.
Is what happens.
Quote unquote dark.
And one of them they think went dark because they basically hit nuclear apocalypse.
Right.
Which pushed the world just different enough to nudge it out of being
reach.
able to, But they're not sure, because how do you know?
You can't get there, you don't know.
And then the other catch is you can't travel into a world where your counterpart is still alive.
Yes.
You can only travel to worlds where the you in that world... Well, if you travel to a world where your counterpart's still alive, your body basically gets crunched.
Yeah.
And
stuck through a black hole.
Yes. And even if you survive...
horrible way to die.
Yes. And even if you survive... You get pulled right back through, so you get crunched a second time,
because
and then you die.
Because the company doesn't want to leave your body there where there's a second you who could come across this body and be like, what the fuck?
Yes, because one of their top priorities is to make sure other worlds don't know that they're traveling between worlds.
That's like the prime directive.
Yes. So the main character is, and it's interesting, it's so interesting in terms of classism, because because good. We're like both freaking out about this world building. So in this world, it's almost like post-apocalyptic in the sense that there's the city that's walled.
Right.
And then there's outside of the
climate
city.
control.
Yes.
Nice
socialism.
Yeah, everybody's taken care of, healthcare, everything you could possibly want, as long as you are a citizen of this city. And then there's outside the city,
which are basically the slums.
Yeah.
And they're ruled by an emperor.
Desert chemical slums.
Yes.
Yeah, like horrible.
Horrible.
With another warlord.
Yep. An emperor.
An emperor.
So what has happened is the people inside of the city...
They've recruited people who generally live in the slums outside of the city to travel between worlds.
Because they're dead on more worlds.
Because they're poor, they're exposed to chemicals, they're exposed to war, they're exposed to all these things that kill people off in these other worlds. And therefore, you can get cheap labor, you can deport them from the city whenever they stop being useful.
But it's this interesting idea of, like, this population of people that is seen as not... like, unwanted, not valued.
Not at all valued.
Is suddenly very valuable for this one purpose of being able to world hop between. Because, and especially in the main character's case, her counterpart is dead on, like, 362 of the 370 world.
Yeah, and her value as a worker is however many worlds she can travel to. Because one of the things that happens in the beginning is that the other person who can travel to a bunch of worlds, I don't remember what it is, but like
the main character's counterpart dies on the one world.
Right.
She couldn't, like, that her, like, coworker friend gets let go because the one world that was left that she couldn't go to, she can now go to.
The main character can now go to, yeah.
So they add it to her roster so they don't have to pay as many people.
Right. And so it starts with they are sort of friends. They're as much friends as she has any friends, is getting deported. And neither of them are happy about it. But, like, the main character's really relieved. Mm-hmm. And, like, everybody knows she's really relieved.
And her one goal is to make citizenship.
Yes.
And she's, like, 7 years in and she has 3 left. But there's a lot of suggestion that they're developing a way to achieve their job without having to send actual people.
Getting the information from the parallel worlds, wirelessly, without people.
So she's trying really hard to become an analyst, which is like
an office job, basically.
Yeah. Which would help get her through those last 3 years so she can be a citizen and join socialism.
But she's really bad at all the analyst stuff.
Yes.
She's really, like, there's no way she'll make it. It's so good.
So good. And she's just such an excellent main character because she does what she has to do. She's a survivor.
She knows she knows her limits. Yes. She knows exactly how far she'll go to get what she wants.
Yes.
And her motivating goal in life is to not go back to the slums.
Yep.
And she'll do literally whatever she has to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yep. And there's so much more we could talk about.
I know!
We could go into spoilers.
You know what? Maybe I'll reread it and then we can do like a bonus spoiler episode.
Okay. That sounds great. And apparently there is going to be not a sequel, but like a companion novel.
Oh, right. You told me this.
Yes.
Still.
Because you could do so much with this world setup.
It's so well built. Also, while I was reading this, I was in my MFA program and I was reading about how she wrote this book during her MFA program, and I did not write anything this good. While I was in my MFA program.
Can you imagine having to plan this? Like, you'd have to keep track of
which
worlds you've mentioned, which things you've said happened on those worlds. And, like,
you need, like, 8.
And who's dead on which worlds, and which
people
can go
when
to.
They're dead.
When they're dead.
And who behaves in which way, in which world.
And what mode, and, like, how different can... It's so interesting how she deals with how the same character varies in different worlds, but in ways that, like, make sense when you learn how their life has been changed. Like, at the core of themselves, they're not different.
But their experiences are. Yeah. It's a very thorough analysis of nature versus nurture. I know. Gabi's making some terrible faces. It was so good. I said November 2021. I have never had 1 month since then where I read so many good books in a mere 30 days. But that one was Blackwater Sister, it was The Space Between Worlds, and it was Hench by...
Natalia Walshots.
Yeah.
Natalia Zeno Wallshots. Natalie Zeno Wallshots.
And those 3 books are so good. They're so good. Oh, God. Just... And sometimes, like, I do this newsletter every month. Y'all are welcome to sign up for it. You go to whatsmacksaid.com and click newsletter. It's a monthly newsletter where I pick my favorite book that I've read that month. And some months, I have to, like...
Have honorable mentions.
Yeah, I mean, I do honorable mentions anyway, but, like, some months, I have to, like, search for something in my library where I'm like, yes, I will definitely...
Oh.
That will be the favorite this month. It's been a slow month otherwise. But, like, November 2021
what do I choose?
was so hard to pick between. I think I went with Hench, but oh god,
it could have been anyone.
I want every month to be like that.
Yeah, that's the reader's dream.
Yeah, basically. Reliving the high.
And then the last one I gave back was The Absolute Book, which we'll go into in a second. That's by Elizabeth Knox. And we're going to... Smack already went off on her Absolute Book rant.
My absolute rant.
Yes, the last time on the other abs... That's going to be the name of the book episode, our Absolute Rant. And so she did that last time we were together, and now I've read it, so we're going to talk about that in a second, and I'm going to pull both of that content together into a bonus episode. So I'm going to shove that aside for just a second while we finish going over other recent reads, because that's just what I've given back to you.
Yeah.
Other things worth mentioning, I think since I saw you last, for me, are A Man Called Ove. It's another Frederick Backman book. That's the one that's been made into a movie with Tom Hanks.
I was gonna say, I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that title.
The movie's called A Man Called Otto because they made it American, so I guess. And it's very sweet. It's about this... The impression you get throughout the whole book is that it's this very old man who's lost his wife in the last, 6 months or something?
Mm-hmm.
And he's lost his job.
Super grumpy.
And he's just a grumpy old man. And then a new family moves in next door with a pregnant woman and her doofus of a husband. And they have 2 other children. And basically inject life back into his life, kind of. And it's a very sweet story, and you will cry constantly.
Oh, great. I don't
I
think the movie was very good.
Oh, really?
That was my impression. I have not seen it.
The book is so good. I should say, trigger warning for suicide attempts.
Yikes.
Which I think
and I
was
assume spousal death.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's...
But, on-screen attempts?
Yes.
Oof.
It's hard to explain without kind of getting into... Not spoilers, but without ruining how the book is framed. But I mean, this is kind of Frederick Backman's shtick, is his writing is very funny.
Okay.
But often deals with serious material.
Dark, yeah. Okay.
And it's this this interplay between his ridiculous and hilarious interactions with this new family next door and his very strong HOA opinions and he has this feud going on with one of the other neighbors and her stupid little yapper dog, and he adopts this cat and hates hospitals and punches a clown in a hospital, ridiculous stuff like that, and just always thinks he's in the right.
Yes,
and then switches between that and then these vignettes about his backstory and things that happened when he was young and the things that kind of made him the way he is now, and the reaction he had to losing his wife, who was pretty much the only person he had, the person his life revolved around.
Right.
So, and Anxious People was similar in that same tone, in that it was this very ridiculous things happening and very fun dialogue and moments.
Okay.
And then very emotionally powerful stuff going on. So that happened. And then my cousin, Christina Alonji, is releasing, her published name is CM Alonji, is coming out with a quick release series of novellas The first one's called To Kill a Necromancer. The second one is Hekarib's Curse.
They're quite good.
They're very great.
They're
a
really
lot of fun. It's about a paladin in a secondary fantasy world where it's kind of like, they feel like the Greek gods in that they're vindictive.
They're very present.
They're very present. They have very different personalities and
they appoint, like, you can become an angel, sort of like...
Right.
Like, you
There's like
become
a
a
hierarchy,
paladin,
yeah.
and then you become like a, I don't know, upper paladin, and you end up as an
Whatever.
angel or whatever. And they're still very human, but they're also not.
Yeah.
And so she serves the king of the gods.
Basically, yeah.
And it gives her all these, like, fire powers.
Yeah.
And it makes her so self-righteous in, like, the best ways possible. Like she teams up with this necromancer who's very, like...
She's so lawful good.
And there are moments where he's like, that is so helpful.
Yeah.
Go you. Go handle that for me. And she's like, I fucking will.
Kick down a door.
Yeah.
But their whole thing is, there was a big, like, necromancer war. So
Yeah.
one of the big things is...
Where the paladins, like, wiped out the necromancers.
So necromancers
and everyone
are...
is taught that they're, like, bad, they're evil, they always go crazy.
They caused a big war.
Yeah.
So they
obviously
must die.
the war is their fault.
Yes, of course.
Of course.
And then...
Yeah, she teams up with one in the first
one.
The first one. Very reluctantly.
Very reluctantly.
Very reluctantly. And it's she's like quite young, right? She's like a young, and he's like this old crotchety dude who like purposefully likes to be mistaken as a drunk.
Yes.
Just he doesn't really want to
camouflage,
deal with anybody.
Yeah. He's this reluctant...
reluctant retiree.
Yes.
Unretiree.
Whose morals are too strong, but he's very grumpy about it.
He's a good guy, but he really is very long-suffering about it.
Very jaded,
Yeah.
Super
jaded. And she is very, like, she's fresh out of the abbey or wherever she's from. Yeah.
On her first holy mission as a paladin.
Right.
And it's spiraling out of control.
Very quickly. And the second one, I actually liked the second one better. I thought that
Plague
that
book.
was like... Yeah.
Too
yes.
soon section of my book.
That's true. Big plague. Big plague.
But this is a holy plague.
Yeah.
They pissed off a god plague.
Yes. Dummies.
One day.
It was interesting to see, because, like, the plague is caused by a god, but, like, it wasn't caused by her god.
Right.
And so she feels completely justified in stepping in and using her god power to heal people.
And there's some very interesting, you get into some of the god politics, because she kind of like, why won't you...
Yeah, why...
You could do something, you're the god of... You're the
king of the gods. And the angel has to be like, sit down.
Yeah.
Like, there are, like, two angels who tell her that.
Yeah. She's like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah. And at the end of each novella, it sets up the next one, and they're going on this journey to, like, find this person who wrote this letter, basically.
Yes.
But, like, as she was talking to that second angel, the angel of her god, I got the sense that the whole series could be headed toward this massive war of the gods.
Yes.
Which would be so awesome.
Yes. And
I don't know how you would do that in novella form, though.
I don't know. It depends on how many they're gonna, like...
20, please.
Please! Chris.
Please. Sweetie.
You can't end this. You gotta keep going. Okay.
Just indefinitely.
Just indefinitely.
But yeah, those are lots of fun. The first one is called To Kill a Necromancer.
Yes.
Definitely recommend.
I don't know if you remember, and it didn't come up again in the second one, so I was looking for it. And I've been like on high alert for it, and then she mentioned another god at the end of the second one, and I was like, maybe that's the hint again. But in the end of the first one, she uses mysterious powers that would not have been associated with the king of the gods.
Oh, I have
like
no
it
memory of
was
that.
cold instead of fire, and that's how she, like, her final burst of strength.
Oh.
Which made it seem like she was maybe going to, like, she's gonna have a falling out with Janine, is what I think, and she's gonna become someone else's paladin. but it didn't come up again in the second one.
Oh, it wouldn't though, unless like.
But at the end of the second one, she mentions just in passing.
Shit!
A different god with crow. Like she mentions she sees a crow.
Yeah.
And she was like, "Oh, that's like the messenger of," and she drops a name with like no explanation. And I was like,
that's interesting. I just figured she was like expanding the world, but like
I wasn't sure
because I didn't pick that up in the first one.
That dinged really hard on
Did
my
it?
radar. I was like,
that's so cool.
And then I was like, I'm gonna hold on to this and wait until I see, because I know she wants me to forget this, but I'm not gonna forget it. I'm gonna keep receipts.
That's awesome. That's interesting. Maybe I will.
Reread.
I would like to. I'd like to say I would, but I don't know if I will.
Depends on how quickly we get our hands on the next
yeah, right.
I read One Last Stop is the one I almost gave back, Casey McQuiston.
Yes.
Which we talked about before. It was super cute. I read The First Cat in Space Ate Pizza by Sean Harris and Mac Barnett, which was a very goofy...
The First Cat in Space Ate Pizza?
Correct.
Okay.
Which is a very, like, it's a comedic graphic novel.
Okay.
About the moon is being eaten by rats. And... they have to send...
Like, the moon is cheese?
Yes.
Okay.
And they send a cat to space.
To take care of the rats.
To get care of the rats. And I don't know if they know it's rats when they send the cat up, or if that's just, like, happenstance. But for whatever reason, they send... There's, like, an astronaut who's a cat.
Is this, like, a middle grade?
Yes.
Okay.
It's very goofy.
Okay.
And it's utter nonsense.
That sounds like fun.
It's delightful. And they shoot this cat, and then, like, it's this very... The cat has a rocket ship.
Okay.
And the rocket ship's whole thing is, like... It has, like, a little gym, a zero-gravity gym, and, like, a special, like, food dispenser. You can pick any food, and it's, like, in a tube or whatever. And the cat picks pizza. That's the first space meal it wants to eat.
Okay.
But then...
And this cat is all by themselves?
It starts out that way,
Oh.
and then there's a ship's computer, and then there's a stowaway, like, little computer who, like, used to be the computer.
A stowaway computer.
Yes.
Okay.
A little stowaway robot who
Okay.
was built by a supervillain who built it to trim their toenails. So it's a toenail clipping robot
Okay.
that escaped because it wanted to go on an adventure and didn't want to do this for the rest of its
No
life.
shit.
So it snuck onto this spaceship, and it's like a kind of like a know-it-all computer, and it's always the voice of reason, but it's like very annoying, so no one likes to listen.
So nobody wants to listen to them.
But it's very funny. And then, like, basically, pizza keeps coming up as an option, and things keep preventing the cat from eating the pizza. So it's this, like, recurring shtick where they're like, would you like some pizza? And then the cat is, like, about to bite in, and that's when you know, like, something's about to happen to keep the cat from eating the pizza. And there's obviously a lot more going on than the fact that the cat can't eat their pizza.
Right.
But
There's the whole rats.
there's the whole gotta, like, fight the rats of the moon kind of thing. But that's the one that I sent you with where how they figure out something was wrong with the moon is all these moon things start going wrong. Like, the tides are messed up, so the boats, like, are tilting over. And a werewolf turns into a duck instead of a werewolf. And everyone's like, what's happening?
A duck wolf. A wereduck.
A wereduck. Yeah,
That would be very disappointing.
It was just hilarious.
If you're used to turning into a wolf.
Yes. And you're out with all your other werewolf
Oh
friends.
no!
Not good. I handed off a
Audience.
spindle splintered and a mirror mended and read both of those. And they were good. I liked the first one a lot more than the second one. You'll have to let me know
Oh,
what
really?
you think when
Okay.
you read them. I liked what it was trying to do, but I felt like it took away a lot of the things that made the first one strong. And then we did Undertaking of Heart and Mercy. So I think those are my recent highlights. And then right now I'm reading the White Cat trilogy by Holly Black, which is more amnesiacs. Memory magic.
Also, fun fact, one of the first books I ever lent you.
Yes. And then
Way back in the Dark Ages.
and then literally the dedication page was
Oh, yeah.
for all the fictional cats I've killed in other books. And I was like, excuse me? Smack, what are you doing?
And honestly, I don't remember any other dead cats. I mean, obviously they're there.
Right. Hopefully in her... that's the thing, this is my first Holly Black, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, this is an interesting one to start with. So the other book worth mentioning is Death by Silver by Melissa Scott and Amy Griswold. And it's being re-released by Queen of Swords Press, which is this teeny tiny little press that does like swashbuckling stories.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay.
And I think when it originally came out, it won a Lambda Literary Award. But it's this very Holmes-ian story in an alternate London. Holmes-ian like Sherlock Holmes.
Right, yeah.
I just realized how weird
It
that
sounds weird.
Yeah, it
out
sounds
loud.
very different from how it looks.
On paper, it's
Yeah.
much easier to tell what you're talking about.
So it's this very Sherlock Holmes-y story where there's this very complicated magic system with like verbs. It's like doing Latin and arithmetic at the same time.
Ooh.
That was the one part of the story where I just sort of skimmed. I didn't really like it. Doesn't like knowing how to do the magic doesn't matter. It just does. And there are two main characters. One of them is really good at that stuff. He's a metaphysician instead of just a regular physician. And then there's the freelance detective who is not as good at magic, but is very good at detecting.
Sure. Sounds about right.
Yeah. And so there's this suspicious death that's linked to the metaphysician, and he gets hired by the family where someone died, and he has to protect his reputation. And he pulls his detective friend in to help, and there's like some pining. Yeah, and this not silly misunderstanding, but like very reasonable misunderstandings that they eventually get over, and everything turns out well. But like mostly, there obviously was like a strong romance subplot, but I really enjoyed the murder mystery.
Yay!
Yeah, it was very twisty and very well laid out, and
It's so nice when they get both of them.
I know, the mystery was good. I enjoyed that quite a bit. I don't think that it has been re-released yet. I think that's coming out April 14th of this year, and then the sequel, A Death at the Dionysus Club, is going to be released at some point in 2024. I don't think they have a set date yet.
Future Gabi here again with just a quick follow-up. The re-release of A Death at the Dionysus Club, as of the release of this episode, is slated for December of this year, 2023. So if you're interested, that's when you should go looking for it.
But I will definitely be picking up the sequel. It was fun.
Yeah! Any other recent reads you wanted to mention? I was going to ask you about The Bright and Breaking Sea by Chloe
Oh, Neil. Yeah, The Bright and
More pirates!
Yes, more more pirates. But The Bright and Breaking Sea by Chloe Neal is another one I read in Salem. They had it on their shelf, and I thought, I actually haven't had a whole lot of luck with other Chloe Neal books. I very much expected to like get 2 chapters in and then put it down, but I really liked it. It was by far the best Chloe Neal book I've read.
Yay!
And it's sort of Master and Commander with magic.
Okay.
The pirates are the bad guys.
I saw, quote-unquote, Master and Commander once, and I slept through most of it. So,
I was going to be like, what does quote-unquote saw mean?
I don't do that often.
Okay.
I was either so tired, or it was very boring, and I don't know which it was, because I don't remember anything.
I would put money on tired.
Okay.
Because it's kind of an older movie at this point, and everybody's still talking about it.
Okay. I don't think I've heard anyone mention it in a very long time.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe that's just, I don't know.
We just run in different pirate crowds.
It's not pirates, though.
Pirates! I think of anything that happens at sea as pirates.
Okay.
Nautical.
Well, nautical. Yeah, that's way less fun to say.
I know.
Okay, well...
Were there whales?
No, but there are sea dragons.
Okay!
But
That's
not
an
until the
acceptable
second book.
alternative.
Yeah.
I'll take sea dragons.
Yeah, sea dragons. So, the main character is this female captain of a I mean, it's basically Britain. There's a lot of basically France and basically
Not
Britain
France. Not
and
France.
basically Napoleon and basically whatever the English Nelson. I don't know. Anyway, this not Napoleon character has been exiled to this not Elba island. But he's scheming and trying to get off and trying to, like, raise his army again. And the main character is a captain in the Queen's Navy, which is basically, I think her name is Charlotte, but, like, she's very Elizabethan. Mostly because Elizabeth is the one who, like, fought off armadas and shit.
Right.
Anyway, strong female royal who is not married, holds the crown herself.
Get it.
And therefore commands this fleet of nobles, I guess. And she pairs up the captain with this guy who is a noble but is like a go-get-em dude as well. He's like fought in the original war against the not Napoleon before he was exiled to not Elba. And he has done like spy work, and so their original mission is to go rescue one of his friends from the pirate stronghold who has information about the not Napoleon guy. And it's very much an enemies to lovers thing.
Yay.
But it's also like primarily adventure.
Yay.
Adventure on the high seas.
Yay.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And it's like, obviously everybody loves pirates. I love pirates. There isn't anybody who doesn't love fictional pirates.
Right?
But like, so like it's always very interesting to see that from like the opposite end of the lawful spectrum.
Oh,
she is
right.
Like
Right.
the main character is a captain in the Navy. She like does shit by the book, but she's also very good at it. And she has these amazing sisters. One of them who she's like a mad scientist sort of.
Yay!
But she's like a very proper mad scientist, and she wears an apron over her dress, and she creates these little marbles that are actually explosives.
Good. I love her.
I do too. And the main character, Kit, her name is, grew up in this like foundling house where this rich, gentle woman takes in orphaned girls, raises them up, gives them education, all that good stuff, finds them good jobs. And she herself used to be a spy. So like Kit can go home and like consult with her. And it's just a really fun read.
Yay!
And I was really disappointed that they didn't have the sequel in that house. So I made Gabi buy the first one.
Hold my arm.
I know, and now she's loaning it to me before she can even read it, so I can reread it and then read the second one, which I have out on loan from the library and is due back quite soon.
Go.
When did you go? So that's everything I've read in the last. Do you have any other books you want to talk?
I think that was it.
Okay.
So I think that's everything we had to say about recent reads, recent acquisitions,
And Snack Shelf shifts.
and snack shelf shifts. The ebb and flow of the snack shelf. So here's hoping.
Here's hoping you have a month like November 2021 when reading. Yes. Get those books, man.
Get it. This has been another episode of Infinite TBR. You can find us on our Twitter at Infinite TBR.
And we are individually on Twitter as @WhatSmackSaid and @Gabalodon, which is like Megalodon, but Gab in the front of it. And you can find all our show notes at infinitebr.com. If you have book recommendations for us or questions you want answered during the podcast, feel free to email us at itbrshelf@gmail.com.